Greetings, I'm Caitlin Carroll, and it is my pleasure to serve as your host for the special edition of MCTV News. Our distinguished guests for the show are Dr. Palmer, Kathy Moravec, and Eva Metro. The topic for discussion is the important yet sensitive matter of the annual budget for Monroe. Our panelists will share points of view on several questions and considerations. We hope you will find our discussion informative and helpful. Eva Metro will initiate our dialogue with the first question, upon which she and other panelists will be free to comment.
Thank you. Okay, the first question, Dr. Palmer. Is it true that Massac High School student population decreased by 190 students over the past 4 years, while full-time education staffing increased by 28 teachers?
No, that is not accurate. Over time, if we think about the education staff at the high school, I think at the height of when all of our Oxford students were here, we added 4 full-time staff members. And actually, in this proposal, there is a reduction of 5.9 staff members. During the time that Oxford students were with us and our population increased, it actually created a revenue stream for both the town and the district and helped to offset other educational costs. So at this time, we have made our accommodations for the current enrollment, and that information is not correct, and there is a great source of information on the Connecticut State Department of Education website under, I believe, student and school data. Strategic school profiles highlight the certified staff, administrators for every school, every district, and there are a series of years of data there. And so I would encourage people, you could check that information. And we have our staff utilization report, which talks about where every staff member is in every school online as part of the budget presentation. It's an addendum. So there's a wealth of information if people would like to follow up.
Thank you.
Great. Many believe in this community by voting no, the teachers will be forced to concede their wage increases for the year. Is that a possibility?
I don't think that voting no is going to lead to concessions. I think those are independent actions. As I look across the state, and I constantly get updated data from the Connecticut Association of Public School Superintendents, and I talk to other superintendents, there are many conversations ongoing, just as we've had conversations ongoing with the MEA, and we will continue to do so through these difficult economic times. At this time, I am aware of no district that has concessions from its teachers' bargaining unit, and that's out of 169 districts in the state of Connecticut. Additional information is that we are approaching close to 1,200 teaching positions that have been eliminated across the state. So I think what we're seeing in our own district is not dissimilar to what other communities are struggling with. The idea that by voting no, we will force a bargaining unit to take a position one way or another, I don't think is an accurate assumption. I think building this budget, I am assuming that I need to fulfill the contractual obligations that this town and district signed on to in this contract. The current contract for our teachers, and we're in the second, we were going into the second year of a 3-year contract. So this will be renegotiated going forward. But this current contract, the Board of Education actually went to arbitration on salary. The figure for salary that was awarded is a legally binding statement or obligation by the district. As we look at where we are, it would be a negative outcome of our budget process if the community and the teachers became so alienated that we don't work together effectively, because a strong school system has those parties working together. I actually had an opportunity to work in another school system with the parent community and the professional staff were engaged in a battle over an issue that divided the district, and it took years for the healing to happen. So I'd like to caution all of us. I will be as aggressive as possible, reaching out, inviting that conversation, showing data, hopefully inviting people to look at things differently. But in the end, great teachers make a great school system. And that is based on research. I want to make sure that, and it happens to be Teacher Appreciation Week, by the way, as we sit here. So, very emotional issue, very complex issue. As we look at this also, it is more of a state issue. I talked about other districts, but the whole funding formula for education, I believe in the next decade or so, you're going to see a shift. Communities like Monroe, where the preponderance of the educational costs are on the homeowner, it's a symptom that we're coming back to the teachers and saying, give us a freeze now. We've got to figure out a different way to fund education as a state going forward. So sitting here, I will continue to do my very best to engage people in those productive conversations. In the next negotiations across the state, I think you're going to see a paradigm shift. I don't think municipalities can continue to pay these increases in salaries and benefits. So we will have to rethink how we're doing business. And I would expect many districts, not just ours, to look at creative ways of addressing this issue going forward.
Thank you for explaining the complexities and the concerns parents have about teacher salaries and unions and arbitration. It is quite difficult for many of us who don't deal with it on a daily basis to understand. It's my understanding the librarians, however, have froze their pay. And tell me a little bit, why is it that the teachers union is unwilling to make concessions during these tough economic times? I mean, I think it's important for the population to understand that it is a little bit beyond their control at this point.
In terms of our librarians offering a pay freeze, we are most appreciative and grateful that they have offered this up. It's a small bargaining unit of 3 members, so it's pretty easy to reach consensus of 3 people versus 330 individuals. Additionally, the MEA is part of the CEA, Connecticut Education Association, and I do believe that the official position of CEA is encouraging districts not to move forward in terms of concessions. So I think there are more forces to bear when we talk about our teachers bargaining unit than a small independent unit for a small number of individuals that can make a decision independently.
Thank you.
Would you please explain the new busing proposal?
Certainly. Anytime you have to cut a budget, you want to stay away from the classroom as much as possible and minimize any negative impact on any student's learning. Obviously, transportation is a huge cost in our budget. So we went back to the drawing board and we challenged an assumption that we have been operating under, and many districts are guided in their transportation decisions, that you must provide a seat on a bus for every student enrolled in every school. What we've heard back from our residents and what we have observed, and I'm sure Caitlin would also tell us, is that high school students tend not to ride our big yellow buses.
Right, I definitely agree.
So as we looked at further budget cuts, we tracked how many students are riding the high school buses. And about 30%, about a third of our students from the high school ride the bus right now. And most of those are freshmen and sophomore students who don't have other means of transportation. Checking with state statutes and getting legal advice from the board's attorney, we may operate on the assumption we have to provide a seat for all those who show up at the bus stop. And so the shift in busing is based on the fact we are assuming no more than 60% of the high school students would ever show up at the bus stop on any given day. With that, we are able to reconfigure the 3 tiers of our busing, because right now we have Massac High School and St. Jude's in the first tier, Chalk Hill, Jockey Hollow in the second, and the 3 elementary in the third.